Welcome to Growth Colony, Australia's B2B podcast. I'm Alex from Xgrowth. Each episode, we bring you B2B founders, CMOs, marketing and sales leaders to find out what makes them successful and what was behind their failures, or as we like to call them, hard-learned lessons. If you enjoy the episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and share the pod with a friend you think could get value out of it. And of course, make sure to join the community Slack channel at growthcolony.org/Slack. That's enough from me though, let's dive right in.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. I'm Shane Hoda with Xgrowth, and today I'm talking to Yaagneshwaran, also known as Yaag, Director of Marketing at Avoma and the host of the ABM Conversations podcast, which is among the top 1% B2B marketing podcasts. And we're talking about why you should reconsider planning your content based on a funnel and what you should do instead. Now, on that note, let's dive in. Yaag, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much, Shaheen. It's been a pleasure joining you today, and I'm all excited to see how this goes.
Yeah, same over here, man. Same over here. I'm really interested. It's a bit of a controversial topic. The funnel is pretty popular, and a lot of people are hardcore advocates of it. But you're talking about, people moving away from the funnel. You're not a big fan of funnel-based content. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of reason to that, right? So what happens is when you look at a funnel-based content, you're thinking about top of the funnel, mid funnel, and bottom funnel. You're dividing your entire content thought process into what creates awareness, and then the middle segment where I'm moving them from awareness to interest and then consideration, and towards the end, how I make them sign up for the product and things like that. But typically, when you look at that kind of a thought process, you're thinking that people are going to come back to you and consume about 7 or 8 pieces of content at a minimum before they go on to sign up for your product. And I really don't think people have so much of time for coming back and forth and spending so much of time with your brand alone. Today we are kind of spoiled for choices. Any industry, like take our own industry for that matter. We when somebody comes into Avoma, they are probably also comparing ourselves with a Gong or a Chorus. And if they don't get the answer to that question quickly, then quickly they're probably going to go and go to our competitor and sign up from there. So our job is, how do we make things accessible as soon as possible? And so for that, we are talking about problem statements. We are talking about things that matter to our prospects and our customers, and then bring the product into that context. How do I say, if I'm talking about a meeting, and if I'm talking about how do I choose what's the best piece of content needed for my customer, I'm going to go back and say that, hey, listen to the sales calls and then identify some of the key things. And from there, you decide what matters more to your prospect based on what they frequently ask your sales guys. And from there, derive your topics. So things like that, bring your product into that context, show them that how this is done. Like, I think Ahrefs does a great job of this, right? They talk about how they know that they're talking to SEO folks and content marketing folks, and they're talking about their day-to-day problems, and bring that product into that context so that before even people sign up, they know why they need to use this product and why this is the right product to use. And the reason I'm a big fan of Ahrefs is that it's one of those very rare products where you go and you have to pay $7 for trialing the product for 7 days. It's not a regular freemium product, and still they get loads of signups. And that's the beauty of it, right? So you make sure that you're talking to them and not waiting for them to go through like funnels of content consumption and finally deciding that, hey, you know what, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to have that call with the sales rep.
Interesting. I mean, do you also think, because sometimes an organization comes and says that, what we're offering is so new that the market is not aware of it, right? And we need that top of funnel stuff for education and really for them to become problem aware, because they might not even know they have a problem. They might not even know that we can solve X, Y, or Z. So what about in those situations? Do you still think that, so those are situations that, you talked about, they got to talk to the sales team and see what kind of content they are talking about and they would need. But, a marketer might argue that, hey, the product that we're offering is so unique, or the problem that we're solving is not well known, like Href talking about SEO, that we need to have those top of the funnel educational material that is going to drive people to then start having conversation with our sales team. So what about in that situation? What are your thoughts about that?
Right. So regardless of the situation, what I'm trying to say is that I'm not saying don't come up with a thought leadership content or don't come up with awareness content. All I'm trying to say is that bring down the number of steps. You don't need to have 10 different pieces of content consumed before people make that move. So I'm just trying to make sure that, yes, even when you're building awareness, show them that how you're going to solve that problem. Why is this a problem? And when you use a product like this, or when you approach this way, this is how you can cut down your steps, or shorten your process, or save time, or increase your ROI. Whatever your value proposition is, you can go into that and you can show them that this is how I'm going to solve your problem, and this is why this is a problem. But instead, if you spend lots of time on just building the basis that this is a problem, yes, people are aware of it. Yes, some of them are not. But when you also indicate that this is the path, then things become much easier. People start to believe you more. Like, say, again, another good example that I can think of is, think of how HubSpot went about with their inbound marketing in 2010, right? So they spoke about a lot of content marketing and things like that, but they also brought in a lot of free tools, or they also started talking about how you could use HubSpot in that entire inbound marketing cycle. So it's important to incorporate your product in that journey. But one of the gripes that I have against the HubSpot model of marketing is that they also talk about a lot of topics that does not make sense to the product, or may not be even relevant. Like, say, for example, why would you want to talk about how to make a GIF, which is nowhere related to what the company does, or it does not even cater to that audience. So at least make sure that you're hyper focused on what problem you're solving for, so that you're better known for that than trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think you're right. I've seen HubSpot's content going out of hand sometimes and becoming too optimized for SEO, and it's not really a lot. There are a lot of content that is not talking about CRM or CRM related topics. But let's break down this alternative that you talk about a little bit more, right? Can you give us maybe step-by-step approach that you take when it comes to content creation?
Sure. So one of the things that I do is, I always love to listen to the calls first to derive my topics. Like, say, for example, right now I'm very new at Avoma. One of the first things that I'm doing is, I'm going back and listening to the all sales calls. Then there are two parts to it, right? So one, there is a bit of the content cycle that I want to own, and I can say that, hey, these are the keywords that have a lot of volume, and it's related, and I can go by it. Or there is another path where I can say that, hey, this is what matters to our customers right now. I mean, these are the kind of questions that they're asking, and we don't have things around that. Maybe it makes sense for us to say, develop a handbook around this, or maybe write blogs around that, or things like that. So once you get closer to the customer, I'm not necessarily saying talk to the salespeople, but either listen to the sales calls, or listen to the customer success calls, or somewhere, or either talk to the customer any way possible. Get to the fundamentals of what really matters to your customer first, and then start to build a list of things as how you're going to go about resonating them. So once you have that, then you decide what is the form. Are you going to make an ebook? Are you going to write a blog? Or is it going to be a landing page? Or is it going to be a podcast topic? If it's a podcast topic, who's the right person to talk about it? Should I bring a guest, or should I discuss it all by myself? So all of those things, comes from that. So, and then, once you have this basis, then also start to think about distribution. So for me, another big part of any content creation is coming from the distribution angle. Now, it's not like I write a blog and then start thinking about where do I promote this, right? So I write it for a very specific kind of an audience. Like on LinkedIn, I write for a different purpose. I see that what makes sense there might not make sense on Twitter. And what I again maybe post on a site like a Growth Hackers, that's a whole different audience. I might be sharing a blog there and writing a small outline around that. So it depends on how you want to think about it, where you're going to distribute it, and who are the kind of people that hang out there, and for what purpose. And then aligning your core content strategy into the different pieces where it makes sense in that particular format across those places.
Got it. That makes sense. And I think that that's a really good approach because a lot of, I see a lot of marketers where they take the approach of, okay, let's start with top of funnel. Now let's produce some mid funnel and then let's produce some bottom funnel content. Where if you take the approach that you just described, where you listen to sales calls and you understand what you get a very good understanding of what's really crucial, what is going to move the needle the most at this current time. And you might hear that, holy crap, like a lot of people are talking about case studies and we don't have as many customer success stories or case studies, and maybe that's what I need to focus on and put a little bit of
Exactly.
energy in. And that's a bottom of the funnel piece of content, right? Or towards a kind of maybe middle towards the end. But if you don't pay attention to that, that you might not uncover it. Now, you also believe that narratives are at the core of your content and storytelling,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
First of all, what do you mean by narratives? When you say narratives, what does that mean?
Right. So what happens is in any typical industry or any particular product line, people are always trying to put you in a box. Like say, for example, just before we started this conversation, when you looked up at Avoma, the first thing that you asked me was, okay, are you guys competing with Gong? Right. So we're always trying to put everyone in a specific category and saying that, hey, this is the box in which these guys are playing. Now, what happens is the moment you do that, you start thinking, okay, Gong is playing the sales game. Maybe Avoma is also doing that. But in reality, when you look at Avoma, like we are not even thinking about just playing to that. We are thinking about collaboration as our core theme. Like say, for example, Gong talks about revenue intelligence. For them, it's sales and it's the revenue game. And then Chorus talks about conversational intelligence. For them, it's about what intelligence you get out of a conversation. And for us, we realize that, the DNA that we come from is more about making sure that the intelligence that you get about a customer may be from a typical customer support call or from a customer success call or a sales call. That knowledge needs to be at the fundamental across your organization. So that's our fundamental belief. So what I mean by that is, a guy who is into product development, he or she might have a list of features to develop on, but that's just a document. But what if they are able to get that access and understand that, hey, these are the things that are really important to my customer, and that's the basis on which I need to prioritize the development of features. So that changes the entire game. And similarly, this can work across every function. And the idea is that you democratize that part and make it collaborative. So I cannot go out and talk about revenue intelligence. I cannot go and talk about, conversational intelligence, but I need to come and say, hey, this is the belief system that we come up with, and this is what we stand for. And I want people to look at Avoma as that piece of, as that piece of software or a platform that establishes collaboration across the company. Now, why am I saying this? The industry is moving from a system of records like a typical CRM and a marketing automation tool to a collaborative space ever since the COVID scene picked up. Everybody is using Slack, everybody is using Zoom. We are pretty much on meetings all day. So how do we solve that problem? How do you make sure that no people are working in different locations? We make the base common and accessible to all. So, and one of the reasons that we have this narrative is that you also are not confining yourself to the product that you have today. For example, look at a product like Kodak. Kodak was actually in the business of preserving memories. You could take a photo and that memory becomes a precious that you want to save for a long time. But the way Kodak thought about it, they thought that they were into the films business. And because of that, they were very late entering into the digital game. And that's why, they were not able to adapt. The moment if they had understood that they are playing in the memories business and that's the core, then they could have played a whole different game. They could have been more interested in what's the latest technology that helps me deliver this better. And they could have adapted. Netflix, on the contrary, they did a great job. They had a shop or they had an outlet where they used to send out the CDs to people. But over a period of time, they realized that streaming is the way to do it in a much better way. And that's how they adopted. So I think narrative is where you tell the world that this is what you stand for. And that's the phrase that you want companies and people and your target audience to think about when they think of you.
Right. So, it sounds like to some degree, when you say narrative, you're talking about, category creation to some degree, but really, what does the brand stand for? Like, what is it that, you're going to be unique in the market? And if somebody hears your brand, what is it exactly that you want them to think about? That's what you mean, right? Is that clear? Is that right?
You can, to an extent, yes, but here's the thing about category. Okay, realistically, what happens is I don't think
I think
everybody
category,
can.
yeah, I kind of redacted, if you notice. I said category creation. I was like, maybe not category creation, but sorry, I interrupted you. What did you want to say?
Yeah. So what I was trying to say was, yes, you're right. In a sense, like not everybody can play the category game unless you are, totally net new. But the idea of narrative is that, see, over a period of time, any successful product, they are going to be like, if I'm coming up with something new, and if that is getting some traction and there's a lot of adoption, then of course, within a year, we are going to have 10 other players doing it in a much faster and a cheaper manner. And of course, people are going to go that way, and then it's going to get commoditized. But what you want is beyond a point, you want to move away from category and you want to stand for something. You want people sticking with you who believe in your DNA, in your thought process. And I think that's the duty of the entire company from a content standpoint, from the sales standpoint. Like everybody needs to live that. And living that belief system is what I think a narrative is all about. And in fact, in many ways, even the category creation is more of actually a subcategory creation. Think of a product like a live chat, right? So you had intercom, and then about 5 or 6 years later, Drift comes into the scene. They are still boxed into the live chat and chatbot category, but the entire difference that they made was saying that I'm not playing the customer support or I'm not playing the customer engagement game. I'm playing conversational marketing. And the moment you think of marketing and sales and think of a chatbot or a live chat tool, you're thinking of Drift. So I think that's what narrative is all about.
Got it. I love that. That's such a great way of putting it. And then wrapping your content around that narrative and producing content around that narrative. That's so good. That's good stuff. Yaag, is there anything else that you think I didn't touch on with regards to content creation, the funnel, narrative, anything that you think our audience would find valuable that I didn't touch on?
One last piece that I would also say is that don't go behind a lot of facts. That's one thing that I want to be stressing upon. A lot of people, when you think of content, people start thinking about, hey, what's the easiest way to bring a lot of traffic? Do I go behind keywords? Do I do keyword stuffing? Do I build more backlinks? And if you have that mindset, then you're probably going to go on a Fiverr or any other black market area where you're going to go and buy things, buy backlinks and things like that. It may help you in the short term, but one of the fundamentals that I've always believed in is that the more you come in with the hack mindset, the farther you're going from accomplishing your goals. And after about 12 or 13 years of being in the marketing space, what I realize is it's much easier and much simpler if you keep things simple and stay grounded and try to get closer to the customer than anything else. Then the chances of you being successful is also going to be higher. And at the same time, you're also going to have more satisfaction because, see, it's much better to get 100 people who are highly relevant to your area reading your content than 1,000 nobody who is not going to take any action, or they are totally irrelevant to what you do and just show that number for the sake of vanity metrics. It's not helping anyone. So that's something that I wanted to leave with.
Yeah, I love the importance of focusing on quality rather than quantity, and changing those numbers from being a lot of vanity metrics to more solid and high quality metrics that you look at. Now, before we wrap up, I got 4 rapid questions that I want to ask you. Right,
Love that.
that I'd love to get your input on. So the first one is, what is one resource? It could be a book, it could be a blog, it could be a podcast, it could be a talk, whatever it is that has fundamentally changed the way you work or live.
Right. So in fact, there's a lot of it, but if I had to pick only
You got to
one,
pick one.
okay, I'm gonna say anything that Tim Solo does. That is the CMO of Ahrefs. So I pretty much read anything that he writes on his blog, his tweets, and everything. So Tim Solo is my biggest source.
Okay, got it. Now, as a question that's going to be similar to this, but let's see if we get there and if we can add a little bit more to it. But number 2 is, if you could give one piece of advice to B2B marketers, what would it be?
I would say don't take yourself too seriously. So that's fundamentally very important. Yeah, but the reason I say this is that the best part of any content writer or any evangelist of a product or anybody who spreads a message is to keep themselves out of the equation. So if you take yourself seriously, then you're going to look at different ways to optimize for yourself, but rather optimize for the purpose. So be aligned to the purpose, be aligned to your belief system, and pick a product or service that you can truly believe in and back, because it's at the end of the day, you are going to bring in that bit of accountability into it. So yeah, choose wisely and don't take yourself seriously.
Love it. Third one is, what are the influencers that you follow in the marketing space? I mean, you've already named one. Does anyone else? If you want to name three, and we've already covered the first one, anybody else come to mind?
Yeah, obviously there are lots, and Seth Godin is my one of my all-time favorites. I think his philosophy towards marketing is beautiful. It is very logical, and at the same time, it's devoid of all hacks. So I love following what Seth does. And in the current times, I'm also a big fan of what Chris Walker does. In fact, everything that he speaks about on LinkedIn or with Refined Labs, it's very practical and it's very approachable. It comes from a place of having done things and showing that, hey, this is the problem that I face on a daily basis, and this is what the problems are. And when you relate to people on that very tactical and at very fundamental work level, then things become much more relatable. So I really love him for doing that.
Got it. Last one is, what's something that excites you about B2B today?
Well, so fundamentally, one thing that I'm excited about is making sure that B2B marketing is still interesting and it need not be boring. So that's something that that's a challenge. At the same time, what I've realized being in this space is that it is becoming more and more like B2C, in the sense, like, especially since COVID-19, pretty much everybody is working from home, and it's not a committee that is making decisions, but it depends on what your product pricing is. Of course, I cannot generalize too much, but fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's going to be like how you resonate with people. Like, say, for example, I could go in and do tons of research about a particular product and say that, hey, you know what, I'm going to buy, say, an LG TV, having compared all the 10 different TVs in the industry. I said, this is what I'm going to buy. And then I, on the before I go onto Amazon to order that, say my friend calls me and I say that, hey, I'm going to do this. And he says, hey man, what are you doing? Sony is the best. You need to go for Sony. And without any second thought, finally I'm going to click and buy Sony because I have trust in that person. So I think that's what it's all about, right? So how do you earn trust and how do you build those relationships is what B2B is all about. And that's the journey that excites me the most.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. All right. Well, Yaag, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to get a lot of insights out of this conversation. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's so much fun being here. And for the listeners, I hope I made your time worth it. And also, if you have chance, just go in and also listen to the ABM Conversations podcast, and feel free to connect with me if I can help you in some way.
Absolutely. I think you're doing an awesome work with the podcast. You have such awesome speakers that are coming up. I mean, it's amazing the caliber of the people that you're getting on there. And yeah, definitely make sure there's going to be notes in the comments about the podcast. So check it out. And until next time, see you later.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for joining us on this episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving us that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and sharing the pod with a friend. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please make sure to join the community Slack channel at growthcolony.org/Slack. growthcolony.org/Slack. Thanks again for all the support, and we're looking forward to seeing you again in the next one.